What's going on, everybody? My name is Bendy, and this is Disney Heroes.
Think somebody will ever find Treasure Planet?
Sweetheart, I think it's more like a legend.
I know it's real.
You will. It's real.
So today, we're going to be doing a new hero overview. When I was going through my list of hero overviews, I noticed that it's been a little while since I've done a support hero. So I wanted to do a support hero today, and today I decided to do Jim Hawkins. Much like Dash, I kind of think Jim is a little bit misunderstood. I think especially for new players, a lot of new players definitely underestimate him. He truly is one of the best support heroes in Disney Heroes, and I think a lot of players overlook that because Jim is kind of a boring character. He's not very flashy. He really doesn't do a lot. Like, just if you watch him in the fight, it seems like he kind of just sits there the entire time, not doing a whole lot. But the support that he provides to his team, especially on the offensive side of things, and he also helps defensively too, but he gives so much offensive support to especially damage heroes and just his team in general that he truly is one of the best supports in Disney Heroes. So as always, we're going to go through what his skills do, what his friend discs do, what mods you should give him, what teammates go well with him, and of course, how to counter him.
Treasure Planet?
No.
That's Treasure Planet.
Now, this one today I think is going to be a little bit different, much like my last two support hero overviews, which were Kermit and Tron. If you haven't checked those out, definitely recommend them. They're pretty good. I think Jim is truly just a support hero in the truest sense of the word, that it was kind of hard for me to come up with a counter for him specifically, without having it be a counter for his entire team, because what he does on the field really does affect his entire team more so than it does himself, if that makes sense. So we're gonna get started here with what his skills do. So we're gonna start with his white skill as always. We have Helpful Morph.
Morph. You jigger-headed blob of mischief.
The player chooses an ally for Morph to fly to, or if you're playing on auto, he will just go to the frontmost ally, which could be him. He removes all of their debuffs and causes them to deal 50% more damage with their basic attacks and skills. Now this basic attack boost and skill power boost only applies to the one that Morph applies to, not his entire team, just so you know. And you can move Morph to a new hero every single time you use his white skill, so you don't have to keep Morph on just one hero the entire fight. And if you're playing on auto, Morph will automatically move to whoever is standing in front at the time that Jim uses his white skill. So this is just a couple little mechanic things just to keep in mind. That is a little bit of a weird white skill, so I will admit that. But anyways, Jim also inspires allies, granting himself and all of his allies basic damage for 8 seconds. This is definitely the beginning of what makes Jim very good. Another thing to note, if you say use Tron or somebody else that removes buffs from enemies, this will not remove Morph. It will remove the effect of the basic attack and also the inspire, but it will not remove Morph himself, which will come into play in some of his other skills, so just something to keep in mind there. His green skill, Solar Surfer. Jim enters each wave on his Solar Surfer, granting himself and allies 300 energy, making himself and allies energized for 10 seconds. Energized allies from Jim receive 60 extra energy each time they perform a basic attack. So this is something that's really going to help your team get white skills off extremely fast. This is definitely one of the main things that Jim is extremely good at as well. Honestly, his entire kit really builds upon each other. So as we just keep going, you'll notice that everything kind of just compounds into just a really solid, supportive role. I think Jim was one of the first ones to get energized. Everybody pretty much has energized nowadays, like almost every new hero, I feel like. But I think Jim was one of the first ones to get it. His blue skill, Stick to It. Jim steals his resolve, granting himself and the ally with Morph a shield with a lot of HP that lasts 8 seconds. If Jim has Morph, he receives both shields. So if you're playing on auto and Jim is standing up front, he will receive a shield for like 44 million HP, so that's pretty impressive. At least that's mine. This shield is pretty good. Probably somewhat of his weakest ability overall, but just adds a little bit of extra defense for whoever Morph is applied to. His purple skill, Pie Smash. Morph blocks an attack that would have damaged the hero he is attached to. Now this is what I was talking about a few minutes ago, where Morph not getting removed by, say, Tron or any other buff removing ability. This is where this is going to come into play right here. Morph is still going to be able to block an attack that would have damaged the hero he's attached to. Morph then turns into a pie and smashes himself into the attacker, dealing a decent amount of damage and blinding them for 10 seconds. And Morph can do this every 5 seconds. So with this purple skill, Morph is able to protect the hero that he's attached to from taking any damage from one attack every 5 seconds. This is very huge defensively. It's really going to help, especially if you're frontmost ally, if you play on auto. I just kind of assume that everybody plays on auto. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But if you're one of those players that doesn't play on auto, Jim is a really, really good option for playing around with the game as it's kind of supposed to be played, quote unquote. Being able to move Morph around to any hero you want to protect a specific hero at any given moment in the fight is super duper helpful. You could probably come up with a number of scenarios where that would be a huge advantage. But anyways, this purple skill is definitely another one of the main reasons he is so good. And I didn't say it yet, but Jim is absolutely one of the best for defending in invasion boss fights, and this purple skill is really the reason why. And you also see, I think, on his red skill is kind of the other reason why, but let's move on to the red skill and then I'll explain that there. So his red skill, Energizing Connection. Morph also makes the ally he flies to energized for 6 seconds. So every time Jim uses his white skill, he's going to energize that one ally that Morph is attached to for 6 seconds, basically. Energized allies from this red skill receive 45 extra energy each time they perform a basic attack, which is different than his other energize, which is kind of strange, but whatever. Once per wave, when an ally or Jim reaches 1 HP, Morph intervenes by flying to the ally, preventing the damage and healing them for 75% of their max HP. So this, as well as his purple skill, is why Jim is so strong for defending from the boss in invasion, and this is why I use Jim for every single invasion boss team that I make, regardless of color, because Jim is extremely effective even without any power-ups or anything like that. You don't even really need Jim to be all that strong. Jim, even being kind of weak, can still be extremely useful for invasion boss fights. He's extremely easy to just throw into the team and is extremely effective. But even if you're just in a regular arena or war fight or something like that, Jim is going to be able to protect his team from taking any damage quite a lot in the fight, with both this purple skill as well as this red skill being able to prevent somebody from dying once per fight. And really, this, as well as his energize, is why Jim is so good. So that is his skills pretty much. Let's move over to the friend disc really quick. Jim's friend disc are kind of interesting. Both of them are semi-situational. You can really use both of them. They're both pretty damn good, not gonna lie. I personally use the Pleakley disc. I will switch to this one every once in a while, especially when I'm facing heroes like Ian or Cheshire or something like that. But for the most part, I just kind of stick with this one. So the Pleakley disc right here, it's going to give Jim some skill power, and damage heroes on the team gain skill power as well. And then the star side of the disc, back and mid damage heroes with energized gain 40 more energy when they basic attack at most when you have max stars. I think it starts at like 10 or maybe 5 or something like that. This is extremely helpful for, say, Dash, Pleakley, Barbosa, anything like that. Obviously, the damage heroes that stand up front are completely unaffected by this. So if you're gonna pair this with, say, like Wasabi or Shigo or anything like that that stands in the front, this disc might be kind of useless for you, and you might want to use this one instead. This one is a pretty hard control enemy counter, so if you're having trouble with a control role enemy, this could be a good disc to switch over to, because what this one does is a control role enemies lose skill power and also armor, and also Jim and his allies gain basic damage from this disc. So this the level half of this disc is actually pretty good. And on the star side, control role enemies skill cooldowns are 50% longer at most with the max stars. So this is going to make it, especially for example with Ian, this is going to make it so that he's almost never going to be able to use his like boom Bastia move thingy where he like shoots up into the sky and does the lots of damage for you. It's going to prevent him from being able to use that one nearly as much, so it's going to prevent a lot of his damage right there. So this is going to be huge for countering, obviously, a lot of control heroes. Both discs are definitely pretty good. They're both a little bit situational, but you could really switch between whichever one you think is better for any specific situation. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the friend discs. Let's move on to what his battle badge does really quick. Jim's battle badge is charged when a shield is applied to 2 heroes, and he gains skill power, always helpful, armor per red team hero, and then once you enhance the battle badge, he gains a team heal of 30% of max HP healed for allies. This one, I think it's a pretty average battle badge because I think this team heal only goes off once and it just heals for 30%, so I don't think that's super great. So I don't think this one is super worth enhancing personally, but definitely a good battle badge to unlock at least. Any battle badge is good to just unlock because it gives a huge boost in power just having it unlocked. Let's move on to the mods, which I think is a reason that you guys are here on these hero reviews. For Jim's mods, you have a pretty decent amount of options for him actually. Either his blue skill or his purple skill. Really whichever one sounds better to you. Depends if you want for the purple skill to do a lot more damage, or for the blue skill if you want to give your team more of a shield. I personally went with the blue skill for the more defensive aspect of things, but there is a lot of people that give full-on purple skills so that Morph, when he turns into a pie, deals tons and tons of damage. So you could really catch a lot of people off guard with it every 5 seconds too, so pretty good. So you could either do blue or purple. I would avoid green skill because it's a level-based skill. I say this almost every time. General rule of thumb is to avoid giving skill mods to level-based skills. As far as other options you could do, you could definitely do a speed-up mod like I have here. I noticed a few things when I was looking through his stats page for this video. He actually has one pretty high basic damage, as well as he has pretty damn high normal crit stat. So you could actually go with a square mod with normal crit, and it would actually be pretty effective, I think. I didn't do that myself. I might actually switch over to that at some point. I'm not sure, I haven't tried it yet or anything. But yeah, Jim actually has a surprising amount of normal crit, and he's almost able to crit with every single one of his attacks. If you can get a normal crit mod powered up 1 level maybe, you'll be able to get him to crit with every single one of his attacks, which is kind of cool actually. I didn't realize that about Jim. So he actually has a pretty surprising amount of offense for a support hero. So you could actually go with a normal crit on him as well. You could also do a shield mod. I don't think that's going to be super duper helpful on him, but shield is decent. You could do it if you have a shield mod to put on him, but I don't think it's that great. The only other one I would absolutely avoid is fantastic crit mod. Just completely useless on him. He doesn't do any fantastic damage, and he also doesn't even have a fantastic crit stat. 100% avoid fantastic crit, and like 95% avoid green skill. Other than that, you can kind of do whatever you think sounds best. I actually do kind of recommend the normal crit mod. It might actually work out. But yeah, so that's Jim's mods. Alright, so we've gone through his skills, his friend discs, battle badge, and mods. Let's see who Jim goes good with.
How cool is this?
Jim, as I've probably been implying a lot, is going to do great with high damage output heroes such as, say, Wasabi, Dash, you have Darkwing Duck, Elsa, Mulan, Cheshire. Anybody like that is going to be hugely boosted by both Jim Hawkins' basic damage boost as well as the energize that he gives his team. They're all going to benefit hugely from that, as well as just anybody that stands in front in general because of Morph, especially if you play on auto. Anybody that stands in front of Jim is going to be really heavily protected by the Morph, so this is going to be super helpful for, say, tanks, frontline damage heroes, and pretty much anybody else that stands up front. Morph is always just going to be super helpful for you defensively as well as offensively too. And kind of piggybacking off of the first two things that I mentioned, anybody that has a really good white skill is also going to benefit hugely from the energize from Jim, like Wasabi, Shigo, Ian. Anybody like that that has a really strong white skill is also going to benefit hugely from Jim.
Well, this has been a fun day, huh? Making new friends, like that spider psycho. Spider psycho. A little uglier.
Skills that get boosted by basic damage, even if they don't apply actual damage. So this is going to be any skill that has orange numbers on it. So you'll see like Kermit's passive where his basic attacks heal. You'll see that these are orange numbers. This means that it's actually boosted by basic damage. So when paired with Jim, Kermit's going to be healing a lot more from the basic damage boost that he gives to his team. This is just one quick example. There's plenty of other skills that have orange numbers like that. Kristoff is going to boost the damage that Sven does. Tigger, who's going to be dealing a lot more damage with all of his abilities alongside Jim, except for the green skill. But all of Tigger's abilities are orange numbers. Davy Jones also has a similar thing where his damage dealing skills are boosted by basic damage. And I think Davy also stands in front of Jim, which also is super helpful. So anybody with orange numbers is going to be super helped by Jim due to his basic damage boosts. Another one that you might not expect, and I have a very specific reason that I'm going to get more into details on for counters. I'm going to bring them up really quick just in this section to round out the section here, because this is going to be the final one. The last one I wanted to bring up here is going to be Mad Hatter. With Mad Hatter's red skill, he makes all of his allies immune to debuffs for the first 4 seconds of each wave. The reason I bring this up is because Mim is one of the best counters for Jim, because she applies Hex in the beginning of the fight and makes it so that they're going to get stunned instead of using their white skill, and Mad Hatter, it just prevents that basically. But I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But let's move on to who Jim is good against.
I'll be back.
Woof.
Seeing as Jim boosts so much damage for his team, enemy teams that have kind of weak defenses or just are very hyper offensive are very weak to Jim's boosts and damage that they get, and you could really get a lot of good quick fights off if the enemy team is not prepared for it. So that's one thing that Jim is going to be good against, is just weak defenses in general. Jim is actually going to be good against other Jims because of the blind that he applies with his purple skill from the Pie Smash. I mean, it's not the best good against thing. So whoever Morph decides to smash with the Pie, this is going to basically make Jim's basic damage boost useless, because blind makes it so that the enemy can't use their basic attacks. It's kind of a weird good against thing. I don't know if it really counts. Jim definitely counters Jim a little bit in that sort of weird roundabout way, and for that reason he's going to be really good against basic damage heroes like those that I've mentioned already. You have Dash, Davy Jones, anybody like that does a lot of basic damage. The blind from Jim is going to make their attacks kind of useless, so the blind from the Pie Smash is a pretty good counter for those kinds of things. It was kind of tough for me to come up with very much for who Jim is good against, because he's just a very good general support hero. He doesn't really do a ton specifically to counter other heroes, except for, of course, control heroes from the Ian Disc, which I guess is the final point to bring up for this section. It's really going to suffocate a lot of the control heroes and make it so that they can't use their skills nearly as much, and they also won't do nearly as much damage with their skills. So that is definitely going to be it for the good against section. Now let's move on to the final section. How do you counter Jim? Now, again, this one I didn't have a ton, but as I was hinting to a few minutes ago, Mim is definitely the #1 Jim counter. And I'm going to explain exactly why, or at least I'm going to try to. It's a little bit of a weird reason, but it's actually extremely effective once you realize how it all works. With Mim's Magicka Disc, if enemies begin a wave with more than 250 energy, they are hexed for 10 seconds and all of their stacks of Hardy are removed. If enemies attempt to use their active skill while hexed, they are stunned for 10 seconds. Now, if you remember from Jim's green skill, Solar Surfer, in the beginning of the wave he grants all of his allies 300 energy. Jim's teammates are starting with more than 250 energy. This means that Mim here is going to be hexing all of Jim's allies right in the beginning of the fight. As a result, they're all going to use their white skill extremely quickly, and they're all going to get it hexed right in the beginning of the fight. This is going to give your team a huge advantage against Jim's team, because they're all just sitting there stunned for the first 10 seconds of the fight, not doing anything for him. So, if we go back to the Mad Hatter thing, I've mentioned that Mad Hatter prevents all debuffs for the first 4 seconds. Now this is going to prevent Mim from being able to get her Hex off from this friend disc. So it's recommended, if you have Mad Hatter powered up, to pair Mad Hatter with Jim defensively, especially if you're facing a Mim. These 3 heroes have like a weird relationship with each other, and Mim is definitely the best Jim counter for that weird reason, and I hope that makes sense. I hope I explained that well enough. Mim's Hex in the beginning of the fight is going to make Jim's entire team completely useless for the first like 10 to 15 seconds of the fight, and you can see obviously that's going to give your team a huge advantage going against the Jim. Mim, definitely the #1 Jim counter. Another thing that's going to help is, of course, Tron, because Tron counters everything. Tron's white skill is going to remove the Energize, the basic damage boost that he gets, the shield that he gives from Morph. The only thing that Tron can't get rid of is Morph himself, as I mentioned before. So basically Tron is going to be able to counter every other aspect of Jim's kit besides Morph himself. So Tron is a pretty good gym counter, as he is for pretty much everything, because Tron counters literally everything in the game. As I mentioned before, Blind is a great gym counter for not only him, but his entire team, because Blind is going to prevent his team from being able to use their basic attacks. You also have Silence, which is a good counter, which is going to prevent Jim's team from being able to use their skills altogether. Your silencers, you have, I feel like I say this every video, but you have, say, like Angel, Draken, Megara, Disgust. Mentioning Angel brings me into my next section here, which is going to be energy removal. Energy removal is going to be super helpful because obviously Jim provides Energize. Some of the good ways that you can remove energy are going to be Pocahontas with Raccoon Steel, her green skill. He steals 200 energy from an enemy with the most energy, so there's that. And then you also have Angel, like I mentioned, with Angel's red skill. Charmed enemies remove 150 energy from enemies they damage. Angel actually has a third reason that she's a good counter for Jim, besides Silence and the energy removal. You also have the Charm as well. Charm is also going to be super good because Jim's Energize and basic damage boost are not going to go away when his teammates get charmed. They're still gaining energy extremely quickly, and they're most likely going to use their white skill on their own team. She has 3 huge reasons that she counters Jim extremely hard, so definitely talking myself into Angel being one of the best Jim counters as well. But anyways, let's go back to the energy removal part, because I got sidetracked a little bit talking about Angel. So a couple surprise ones I've never mentioned on this channel yet. You have Go-Go, the blue skill. Go-Go throws both of her discs at the 2 enemies with the most energy, removing 75% of their energy. Super helpful just to kind of halt them from being able to use their white skills as often. And then you also have Lilo, who I was kind of surprised to find out is actually a very good gym counter due to this blue skill. This blue skill is actually kind of insane. I didn't really think about Lilo being all that great before, because I've heard that Lilo is not the best new hero, but this blue skill is a huge counter for Jim, and I'll explain exactly why right now. Lilo distracts all enemies, has a 100% chance to dodge all attacks that target her for 8 seconds. Enemies targeted by this skill have their current remaining skill cooldowns increased by 5 seconds. That sounds cool and all. This gets even better on Lilo's red skill. This is a huge way to just shut down Jim's teammates for a good like 12-ish seconds, depending on how many hardies get removed. She also has Silence and movement speed reduction, so this is also super helpful. But yeah, Lilo is actually a pretty good gym counter for the blue skill and the red skill boost that is given to that blue skill. Dr. Draken for a very similar reason to Angel, because I've always said that Angel and Dr. Draken are kind of similar heroes. They both have the Charm and Silence, like I said before. Dr. Draken's red skill, all silenced enemies lose 80%, or I always say 80%. All silenced enemies lose 80 energy each time they basic attack. This is going to be a huge way to prevent Jim's team from being able to use their white skills. And then the last one I had here, we have... Where is she? There she is. Magicka. Magicka with her white skill is going to stop the enemy that is dealing the most damage to her team right in their tracks. She steals 600 energy and removes armor from them for 15 seconds. Then the purple skill boost on the wand zap, it's going to reduce the attack speeds and movement speeds of the enemy team. Magicka, pretty good counter as well, to stop whatever high damage dealing teammate Jim has with him with the wand zap. So I think that's pretty much all I had for Jim. Jim is 100% a support hero in really like the truest sense of the word. Despite being such a well-known hero and being on the top of the tier list, I think he still is quite underrated at the same time somehow. And I think a lot of people overlook him just because he's not very flashy, like I was mentioning before. He kind of just stands there and does his thing, but the thing that he does is extremely good. I'm trying to concentrate a lot more on these hero overviews on heroes that, 1, I think are extremely powerful, and 2, heroes that you might not expect and that I think get overlooked a lot, which is why I wanted to talk about Dash and why I wanted to talk about Jim today. I think the two of them really get overlooked a lot, especially by newer players. So if you're a newer player, I definitely highly recommend working on Jim. I think everybody should work on Jim, much like I think everybody should work on Tron and Kermit, the last 2 support heroes that I talked about in this series. The 3 of them are, I think, some of the most solid support heroes in the game. Them and Timon. Maybe I'll do Timon as my next support hero. But anyways, I think that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something today. I love doing these hero overviews. They're by far my favorite videos to make, so I hope you guys enjoy them. That's going to be it. So, peace. 3, 4... 5. Fuck them up. How did Pooh go down?
何お前は